Hey, Mark, how are you?
Hi, Marcus.
I just realized we didn't loop the audio track, so we have that little window there.
Well, I was thinking, it'd be nice to add a bit more lyrics to this song because it's quite a catchy tune. Maybe
Mhm.
we can build some more, yeah, a bit
So we'll
more.
have a book, and then we'll have a track, and then we'll
Yeah,
have.
exactly. Exactly.
Oh, that's wonderful. Yeah, we'll look into that. We'll look into that. Coming home to who you are with Marcus and Mark. It's wonderful to be back here again. We're starting our second part now, chapter 8. Um, want to jump right into it?
Let's jump right into it.
Yay.
Part two of three, right? So it's a three-act book. So we're kind of getting into the passaging phase, into the middle phase of the book. Um,
Hmm. I'll connect this what happened last chapter, and then you can walk us into this new chapter, chapter 8. So in chapter 7, Kenna, he said, "You know what? If I'm gonna fail, at least I'll fail on my own terms, and let me actually have a go at these salons." He feels a calling towards the salons. His doing comes from his being, and he wants to understand his being. And his father said, "Look, don't do these salons, don't lead them." But Kenna's like, "This is my choice. I failed my engineering exam. I'm not sure engineering is for me. And I feel a calling towards doing this over here." You know, the thing about adolescence, it's where we try a lot of things. We break a lot of things. We experience a lot of things. And now Kenna is saying, okay, I want to experience facilitating conversations. Anything you'll add to that, Mark?
no, it's great. I think that's a great setup. So, chapter 8, Empty Chairs, First Fears. So, I guess the title says it all. He shows up
Mm-hmm.
all prepared, and probably, like we'll speak about afterwards, over prepared and
Mm.
very eager and very ready to deliver his first salon. And, there's not too many people that showed up, and the people who did show up are not really very engaged. So there's something about the way he's delivering it that, yeah, it's just not connecting with the audience, and so he feels, a bit, I guess, disappointed at the end. And his good friends Alex and Rosie, help him to gain some new perspective. And he's sort of at the end of the chapter, he recognizes that there's definitely some room to grow in this journey of leading the salons.
Yeah, some room to grow. There's always room to grow, eh? It's
Mm.
just starting out on his journey, he realizes a lot more. It reminds me of this quote we used to say, just like first kids are just like pancakes. You always get to throw out the first one. My older brother didn't like that quote, but uh, Kenna gets to throw out his first one because it totally bombs. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's not really about throwing it out because, oh, well, I mean, maybe a little bit, but it does imply that you're you're not necessarily gaining the insights and the lessons from it, right? If you throw it out. I think what he recognizes that it was a rite of passage probably that he needed to go through, and that there were some valuable insights that his friends help him um, to unlock.
Yeah, it's a bit
Yeah,
tongue in cheek, and then he's surrounded himself by good friends who actually give him new perspective,
exactly.
and that's what our notable quote is for this chapter.
Yeah, maybe just before we go there,
Mm-hmm.
Marcus, the
What's up?
I love what we captured in the previous slide. Can you just go there at the bottom?
Sure. Boom. Excuse me.
Authenticity lost from over preparedness.
Okay,
That's
talk
quite
to
an
me.
intriguing caption.
Okay,
Authenticity lost from over preparedness.
we're gonna jump into that, but yeah, set us up. What's up? What do you want to highlight?
Well, it's it's when we were preparing, or when we came on the call before the live recording,
Mhm.
we were checking in, and I was like, I'm not really prepared, Marcus. I haven't done anything to prepare for this call. It's been a busy week, but I'm here, and I'm looking
Sure.
forward to it. And I feel like we've gotten to the point in these live sessions now, where we've done 7 or 8 of them,
Mhm.
where it feels like there's less need for preparation, and there's more kind of comfort in showing up and trusting that we can sense into important topics and connect back to the chapter in the moment, and trusting that our way of dialoguing is going to naturally emerge some nice things that we don't have to necessarily upfront be fully have fully fleshed out, right? So but I can also see how somebody like Kenna, who's stepping into this for this new field of facilitation for the first time and leading a salon, and that it would be very natural for him to be hyper prepared and to have everything worked out up to the last thing that he's going to say, maybe even have a full script written up, that would be a very natural thing to do, right?
He's an engineer, right? It's worth noting, we've been having these conversations for a year and a half, right? And really, it is showing up to speak with, like, this is a comfortable space for us of just talking, recorded and unrecorded. And we did prepare a lot for like the first 2 or 3, and that's just a natural. We have enough gray whiskers to know. Well, you shaved yours. Looks very nice, I might add. We have enough life experience to know that's how the game is. When you're figuring stuff out, just like a baby walking for the first time, starting any venture, you're going to get a bunch of bumps and bruises, and that is the learning tax you pay. People, young adults, high school students, adolescents, you really don't know that, because you have an idea of what perfect is, or something that's flawless. I have a different meaning for perfect, but you have an idea of what something flawless is, and you're trying to live up to that, into that, and then the real thing is, what story do you tell yourself after those bumps and bruises? That's where the magic happens. That's the difference between a fixed mindset and a growth mindset. Everybody gets hit in the mouth. It's what story do you tell yourself after being punched in the mouth?
Yeah.
I mean, lean into that. Go on.
Well, I find it just very fascinating that in traditional education, when you think about tests and scores and exams and all that, the logic of the more you prepare, the better you're going to do. It sort of holds true, right? If you study really hard, and you know the material inside out, you're going to probably show up the test and deliver a pretty good result. Whereas I think with something like facilitating a salon, it has as much to do with the interaction with the people who show up and being present to that as it has to do with what is it you're going to tell and to share. So there's an element of, I can prepare my speech, I can prepare my message, but I can't prepare how people are going to react. I can't prepare, what the mood is going to be in the room. I can't prepare what the needs are of people, etc. And the only thing I can do is to be very present to that and to be ready to engage with that in the moment. Right. So I think he's entering into a situation where, that 100% work hard, get everything prepared, and you'll do well. sort of starts to fall apart a little bit. Even though he failed his engineering exam despite having worked really hard for it. So it's not 100% the case, but I think there's something different here. The education from a point of view of there's material, the material, you'll get the exam, you'll do the exam well. Here it's like it's something else and it's new for him.
Okay. Watch this thought now. It's just a new skill set. It's a new skill set of public speaking and of connecting and engaging with people. And like with any new skill, there's a learning curve. One thing that he has yet to learn is who he is and how that connects with people. Because one of his strong suits is going to be him being Kenna, his lived experience, his kindness, his perspective, his way of looking at things. Yeah. But he's not leaning into that because he's trying to be somebody else.
Yeah. And that's why it comes across as inauthentic, right? Because he's not trusting himself yet. He's not showing aspects of himself. He's really attached to, his script. He's attached to his content probably, and that has probably a bit of an inauthentic effect on the audience.
And this is a more nuanced conversation in that, is it that he does not show his true self, or is it that he's trying to show something else? It's not so much that he's hiding Kenna. It's that he's trying to be Amar.
Yeah.
When it's like, dude, don't try to be Amar.
True.
Just be Kenna. And that's actually the quote, because that's what Rosie tells him.
Mm-hmm.
So after he bombed, and he bombed, it's just like in stand-up, you have to have so many bombs. Rosie comes up to him afterwards, and they're talking. And he's like, hey, maybe you're trying too hard to mimic Amar's style rather than finding your own way to engage people. Kenna managed a smile, a small, grateful smile. You're probably right. I was so focused on trying to recreate what Professor Amar did. I need my own spin on it. That takes a bit of self-awareness.
Mm-hmm.
Let me ask you, Mark, have you ever showed up to something trying to be someone else, or you showed up thinking this is what the role is asking for and I'm living up into that role, as opposed to Mark meeting that role?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I would say most of my corporate career was, I was in the belief that I needed to be more like what I saw in my colleagues, more outspoken, a little bit, more aggressive in meetings, be able to confidently, speak up and share my perspective, even if it wasn't being called on, or even if I, didn't necessarily have anything unique to offer, but like share of voice was important. And I saw that around me, and I was like, well, that's what it takes to be successful, right? And that's the way to do it. And so I tried to mold into that, but it never felt good, and it would never really lead to anything, any sense of success either. It was just like, I felt inauthentic, and it would make me, my voice wouldn't sound right. My energy wouldn't be right. There'd be anxieties, and all that would come through. And it wasn't until the point where I embraced myself, and I was like, no, that's not me, but who I am is actually also valuable in these situations. That's what true diversity is, right? Is when you can be yourself and speak from that place of who you are in environments that are a bit different than that. And that's where, the value is created, right? Because you have truly different perspectives, you have truly different energies that are, contributing to, right, to the conversation and to the business. So yeah, when I started to come into that awareness, it made everything so much easier for me. It eventually led me to leave that environment, which is, one of the consequences, I think, that sometimes happens, but it doesn't have to be the case. But it definitely made my life easier, right? And I felt better about myself and more at ease. And it took a lot of pressure off my shoulders. Yeah.
There's no greater privilege than to be who you are.
Mm.
Yeah. Before this, we were reflecting on our first meeting, and I'm not going to throw a curveball, but I'm actually going to share something different than what we shared before.
Mm-hmm.
An aspect of me is that I do have true, sincere enthusiasm when I talk about stuff that I love. And you noted that after the fact, after we have known each other for a few conversations.
Mm.
And the reason I bring it up is because when I'm with other people and I'm sharing an idea, I start to speak and my mind is like really, really spinning. And somebody said, you're always trying to sell something. And I thought about it and I'm like, no, I'm not trying to sell you anything. I'm just excited about this.
Mm.
And I remember you said, Marcus, one thing I've always seen in you is enthusiasm.
Mm.
And I thought about it and I was just like, you know what? Because I started to pull myself back. I'm aware, self-aware. But I started to inauthentically show up in places like unenthusiastic and like, okay, do I need to hamper myself now? Because am I giving this person the wrong message? Sometimes even with females, it's just like, does this person think I'm trying to hit on them?
Mm.
Like it's like, no, I am enthusiastic about this. And then I realized, you know what? First of all, I do try to match the energy of the conversation. But then it's just like, Marcus, don't hide that enthusiasm. That is you.
Mm.
And you know this. I'm very comfortable with the silence that you hold as well, because I can hold that silence. And there's an underlying value that connects us while still us showing up authentically who we are.
Mm.
And that's where the collaboration comes from. And that's where it bubbles up of, hey, be you. There's a mutual respect. And there's an understanding that however you show up to this project, we have aligned goals. And that's okay. Does any of that resonate, or what are you thinking?
100%. And that's such a beautiful example, Marcus.
Yeah.
Such a beautiful example. And I remember that really well. Like, it's, and I think what you're sharing here is how powerful it is to acknowledge people, or to see people at their essence, at who they are in their essence, and acknowledge that. Because yeah, there was a part of me that could have judged it, through the lens of, am I being sold something here, in that first conversation.
Mm-hmm.
But it wasn't that, and there was also, recognition that I was actually seeing beyond that, or I was seeing you, in that. And that's where I felt like, no, there's just a lot of passion here. Like that, it's passion, it's dedication, it's inspiration that I'm witnessing, right? And to focus on that, I think it makes a big difference. I think it's very impactful to see people for who they are at the deeper essence. But it does require a different
Security.
lens, right? A different lens, I think.
Let me give you a perspective from the other side. It was for what I see as security, because this is what it was. You said, let's see where it goes from here. Trust is built over time, and you knew you had the ability, and we said this very clearly in the beginning. This can stop anytime. We can both pull back when we're ready. But I was secure in just saying, yeah, let's pursue this because and you were secure to say, let's pursue this, understanding both parties can pull back anytime. I think what interdependence is, and in a higher level, what love is, it's I can do this without you. I choose and I want to do it with you.
Nice.
With all the other things, that's why you know in marriages at work, in relationships at work, it's like I am independent, and I choose to do it with you to help you meet your needs as you are independent as well.
Yeah.
But you know that person is working for your benefit as well.
Yeah. Yeah, because that's where new things get created, right? In that space, interdependent space. Like, of course, independently you can continue to move forward with things, but interdependently is where really truly amazing things can emerge. And with a lot of creativity and a lot more fun, I think. It's just joyful, right? To walk together. What's beautiful about this, because we've really sort of gotten on a track which is sharing more of our personal story, but it actually parallels really nicely with the end of this chapter.
Okay, talk to
8.
me. Mm-hmm.
Because Kenna's friends not only help him understand that he needs to find his own voice in these things, but they also make themselves available, all right, to support him in getting this really off the ground. And both Rosie and Alex have, some unique ideas and contributions that they feel could potentially support Kenna. So the chapters ends off with them expressing that, and Kenna being very grateful for it, and asking them to think about it, like whether or not they want to commit some time to this and to do it jointly, to do it together, to do it interdependently, rather than him having to walk the path on his own. So
I think, and we also worked something in there that Rosie said, if you want some help, and they sit down and they brainstorm some stuff and they come up with some ideas. And Rosie says, we can help you. And this is something awesome Kenna does. Kenna recognizes also, hey, only do it if you want to. He says, I know you have your startup, Alex, and I know this is senior year for you, Rosie. He again makes it their choice. And that's the beautiful thing about collaboration. It's always a choice. Love is always a choice.
Yeah.
You show up for your daughter because you love her, but it's like, I choose to because it's going to overextend me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a beautiful parallel.
Oh man. It's life, right?
Yeah. In that flow, it's amazing how many signs and synchronicities and parallels and all of that, you just become aware of it, right? The stories we tell become the stories that that are created, and
All right. Well, I think we've had a nice, robust conversation. We don't need to touch on this topic per se, but I want to bring it up just because we loop back to it towards the end of the book. Kenna overprepares, and in his overpreparedness, it flops. And we're going to come back to that. So let's just keep that in mind. Our next chapter, chapter 9, can you tell us a little bit about it?
Yeah. So they meet at Professor Amar's office. So Kenna has, Professor Amar as a mentor for these salons, and they have weekly meetings. So Kenna asks Rosie and Alex, that basically says, if you're interested, please meet me at Professor Amar's office on this and this date. That's when I have my weekly updates and mentoring session with him. And then they end up showing up, and they have that session with Professor Amar together. And it's very beautiful because what Professor Amar does is he sort of coaches them, asks them questions around what is motivating them to join the session, and in that conversation they come up with a new idea on how they can launch these salons in a way that is more authentic, more engaging, more inspiring. But it comes again through that dynamic, right? The co-creative dynamic is where that idea is born. And it's not just Kenna trying to figure it out on his own, right? It's in that dynamic. And I think that again speaks to the power of interdependence and collaboration and co-creation. So much more depth and insight can come through that. And I think that's what we witness in chapter 9.
One thing, and we'll speak to it at length next time, but you can only express from your experience. And that's what Professor Amar does as a good mentor. He gets to know them, and he walks through their experience and saying, oh, where's this coming from? And you really get to meet the three characters there.
Yep.
Yeah, beautiful, beautiful. Mark, is there anything you want us to end with, or any thoughts? Over preparedness or authenticity?
Well, the over preparedness, what's the right level of preparedness? And what I feel is that there's no preparedness is too little. There's also too much preparedness where you're just, you're not in the moment. And there's something about doing the right, getting some of the basics right, and then surrendering. There's something about just letting go, right? And saying, I am prepared. I've done what I needed to do to prepare for this session. I can now let go, surrender, and just show up in the moment and trust that whatever I need is there because I did prepare. And I think that is it's a nice sort of sweet spot, around, what it means to be prepared.
Yeah. When you're going to do a squat, trust your legs. If you did the work, you can trust yourself.
Exactly.
Yeah. All right, Mark. It's been another wonderful session. I thank you for being on the journey. Starting part 2. And for everybody watching, come home. Let's continue coming home to who we are. All right.
See you next Friday. Bye-bye.
Peace.